Hi everyone! In today's video, I'm going to talk all things personal statement. So I will just assume that from this point on, people who are watching are only those who are interested in writing the personal statement, because I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I will do my best to make this video a very comprehensive guide to personal statement from beginning to end, sort of a video that I wish I could have watched or I had to watch when I was writing my personal statement, because obviously there are resources, but I still think they're maybe a bit limited and we don't hear enough first-hand stories from people who actually went through the application process. So as I said, it's gonna be all things personal statement. What is it? How to prepare to write it? Do's and don'ts, tips. And at the end, I'm also gonna read my personal statement. So if that's the only part you're interested, then you can skip to it, look on the timestamps. So a personal statement is basically a paper that you have to write when you submit your application to a UK university. So when you apply to university, you not only give your predicted or achieved grades, but you also write your personal statement, which I would say is equally, if not more important, facet of your application than grades, because grades are basically a binary thing where you either have the grades that are required or you don't, whereas personal statement can really distinguish you from other people who have the same grades as you, especially for competitive universities. So I would definitely advise to pay attention to personal statement. Do not write it in 1 week and really devote your time to it if you really have the ambition of attending a more competitive university. So the way I like to see it is personal statement is sort of your way of not only showing your high achievements or grades, which is also a part of the personal statement, but I would say it's just 1 max 2 paragraphs. While I think what's even more important is showing off to the university admission people that you're actually A, interested in the topic, and B, that you've done your research, you know what the course entails and what kind of candidate are they looking for, and you actually show active passion and interest in the subject you're gonna be studying if you get in, of course. And as I said, it is very important because for those higher ranked universities, a lot of candidates will have the grades. So for the admission team, it's not even that impressive that a person has achieved a 1 top % of grades in this school. And that's why it is your kind of only chance to show the kind of person you are, and also why is it you that should be studying this subject and not another person with your qualifications. So really make the best use out of it. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it and how to do it in a compelling way. From what I remember, when you apply to universities in the UK, the deadline for applications is 15th of January, unless you apply to either Oxford or Cambridge, which I think the deadline is 15th of October. But I personally did not apply to either of those universities. So I think I submitted my application middle of November, because I just wanted to have it out of the way and then to be able to focus on my exam prep. And because I really put emphasis on starting early, as I do with everything, because I feel that's one of my biggest keys to success in terms of whether it's academia or career. I think you give yourself the highest chances if you actually do your prep well and give yourself enough time to not only prepare and write the paper itself, but also have other people give you feedback. And from what I can remember, I started around, I definitely started doing it in summer. Maybe it was, I don't remember, it was July or August. Overall, I would say I wrote it for 2 months on and off. Obviously, it wasn't every day a couple of hours work, but I did it pretty consistently and definitely devoted a lot of my hours of work into it. So before you actually sit down and start typing your personal statement on the computer, there are things you have to do before, I think, and it does, as I said, require preparation. And the first thing that I would highly recommend you do is read at least 2 books, but I would say 3, 4 is the best. Books that relate to your subject of interest. So for me, it was economics, obviously, but it can be basically any subject. You need to do your reading beforehand, because one of the, I think, easiest but also the best strategies for writing your personal statement is mentioning the books you've read, and also inputting your own opinions and reflections on them. But in order to do that effectively and actually know what you're talking about, you actually have to read those books. I would say you don't have to read it from the first to last page, because if you're not doing an interview, I personally did not do any interviews, my application was based solely on my grades and my personal statement, you are not going to be asked about it, probably about your knowledge of the book. It's totally different with Oxbridge. That's why I also didn't apply there, because I think the interview process would just eat me alive. But you need to remember that people who review your application are experts, and they will probably have a good liar detector. So if you're just gonna try to bullshit your way through it and mention books such as The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, they're probably gonna be able to notice that you actually did not read it. And also, there is not much merit to just mentioning huge economic books while it's not really realistic that you would actually like reach out for them and read them. So as I said, like if you have no idea where to start with your personal statement, just go to your local library and like borrow a couple books on the topic, like from a variety of subject or fields within that subject, and just give them a read. And it's not really about like finishing those books, but actually taking out something from them. And when you read them through, definitely remember to like highlight things that you think like you may mention in the personal statement, or just write your own notes. Like do whatever you want to, but just have at least like a solid base of things you want to mention in your personal statement that relate to those books. And I would say that the reason that this like strategy to write your personal statement is that important, because it gives you an advantage in case you like haven't had that much like experience or extracurricular activities. So if you haven't like won 10 competitions, you get to actually show your interest and understanding of the topic without having to like, you know, name drop or do a lot of like showing off. Just show off your intelligence through the literature you read. And as I said, constantly remind the people who read your personal statement that you are passionate and interested in the subject you're going to be learning, because that's the key idea behind the personal statement. And my second tip when it comes to prep for personal statement would be to join Project Access, which is this student initiative where people who already attend universities are recruited as like mentors. And if you apply for Project Access, you get to have one mentor assigned to you who usually studies the subject you study. It can be the case that they study at your university of choice, so say like Oxford or LSE, but it can also be the same subject, just like a different university, depending on like the team they have. And I used Project Access when I was writing my personal statement. And although I remember I wanted to get into LSE the most, and I got a person from UCL, but they were of great help with my personal statement. I think they really like, obviously they don't do the job for you, but they give you feedback. They can help you with writing, and they're just like there to kind of oversee this process, because usually like, at least in my school, like teachers did not care at all about our personal statements or like what we did with our university applications. So it was good to have someone older than me who already went through that process kind of guide me through it. And I actually also like volunteered to be like a Project Access mentor this year, like because I already got into uni, just because like I wanted to kind of give back to the community, and because I thought like a part of my success was the mentorship I received. I want to be that kind of person for the next year's like applicants. Okay, so now let's cut to the chase and actually go through the step-by-step process of how you should write your personal statement. I think I need to emphasize that this is just the way I have written my personal statement in. So I'm like gonna go through the paragraphs, which is probably not the only like way to write them, but if you read more of other people's personal statements, you will definitely get the gist of what's the overall structure or like patterns within them. Although there are not very strict rules as like what you need to include or like what each paragraph needs to be about, there is a general, like I would say, distinction. So because I just have experience with my own personal statement, I will explain you what I did in each paragraph. So my personal statement had 5 paragraphs, and the first 2 I devoted to writing about, as I said, books that I've read, and not only like, as I said, not only showing off that I've read them and that I understood them, but also kind of showing how like, oh, like this book sparked my interest about this topic, and that's why like, I don't know, I discovered I want to study economics, or reading this book made me realize XYZ, and this is why ABC. So in the first 2 paragraphs, not only did I write about these books, but I very much linked it to my economic knowledge so far, and also like mentioning several reasons for why I want to study economics, and also what interests me about economics more specifically, because obviously you're not going to be interested in the whole subject, but I think it's a good strategy to just show off, even if there's just like one specific field that you're really passionate about and you've read like several books on it, then show it off that you have actual genuine interest in like a facet of the subject you're going to be studying. My third paragraph was about the skills that made me suitable for the course. So in my case, economics, I wrote about my mathematical abilities and the contests I've won, and why I actually enjoy mathematics so much and why I think it's important. So sort of that was like a skill that is very necessary for an economics degree, and I decided it would be a good idea to kind of show off that I am genuinely good at it. And in the first paragraph, I did my showing off of like achievements, the things I did, the projects I undertaken. So like, for example, I organized an MUN in my city, so I devoted like a lot of my space for that. You can also mention some volunteering experiences or like your passions. You should remember that whatever you write in your personal statement, whether that's even like mentioning your passion, it should relate back to why you want to study the course or why you're a suitable candidate for that course. So say you're applying for like economics, but you won, I don't know, an IT competition, or you design an app, like I'm just making stuff up, then you can obviously like relate that to your analytical skills or your like entrepreneurial spirit. Tough word. And my fifth paragraph was really short. I think it was just like a 2-sentence conclusion of like, I really want to study this course, basically. I'm going to review my personal statement anyway, so like see what I mean. And I would say because I didn't really at that point know what I want to do with my, like I didn't have any specific career path in mind, like at all. I was just interested solely in the subject and wanted to find out my options as I like study it and as I attend university. If you actually know what you want to do, like you are very keen on, I don't know, becoming a marine biologist, say that in your personal statement and say that like you believe that studying this course will allow you to pursue that path and you're really passionate about it. But like, don't worry if you don't, because as I said, like a lot of people don't know what they're doing and what they want to do, especially like when you're applying for uni. So you're like 17, 18. So now for the do's and don'ts of writing your personal statement, it's just going to be like a quicker list. So for do's, I wrote plan, and leave enough time before deadline for small corrections and feedback. It's very important to have enough time for the 3 stages, as I said. So prep, writing, and feedback. Writing a personal statement is not just about the middle part, because without the prep, it's not likely to be a very convincing personal statement. My second point is in regards to language. So I wrote use academic, professional, and confident language. So there's not much need for like a very complicated, sophisticated language style, right, of like writing, because that's not what the personal statement is about, and you're gonna like only end up wasting words. So just stick to the facts and use like a professional academic language. I wrote storytelling because I think it can be a good and convincing tool if you actually have like a little story to quote. And this can be a bit tricky because you don't want to get too soppy and like, you know, like write about your whole life experiences and how you've always been passionate about this, or like, you know, say stuff that aren't true. But if you actually have like a story of a specific person or like an event that inspired you, like you learned about this subject or this field through that event or that person, and that's how you like got into the subject. Or I read like a couple personal statements that are like mentioned like trips abroad, which is like, oh, I went there and I saw like the state of the economy, and that made me realize how much work is there still to be done, and I want to contribute to this like field of education, whatever. Like, and I think what's nice about it is that it adds like a personal, unique touch that probably not many others have. It's not necessary, but I think if you have something like that in store, then I think it's time to use it. I also wrote be really straight to the point and concise. So again, like don't waste words on the language. And my last point would be try to tailor your skills that you're highlighting to match the ones related to the course. So as I said, like for economics, it would be showing off that I'm really analytical and I can think in quantitative terms. But I'm also like well organized and mathematically capable. I think like if you're applying for English literature, it will be a completely different set of skills, but you can just look through like universities' websites and look for like what type of candidate they're looking for, and then sort of match your the way you describe your experiences or, you know, achievements to that specific skill set. So now for don'ts, things that you should avoid when writing your personal statement. So I said you'll probably have to cut back on like the words in personal statement anyways, because I think you can use only 4,000 characters, which is like 400 words from what I can remember. So make sure you're not wasting any words on stuff that don't bring anything new or that don't add to your personal statement anything valuable. You really have to be very critical with what you wrote, and even though like a sentence may sound very pretty and beautiful and, you know, it just sounds great, if it doesn't add anything, then just cut it off and like don't be sorry about it. I also said don't make your tone too personal and don't make stuff up. And although I think most of us saturate our experiences a bit more or write in a way that makes us look very capable or like very high achieving, even though like we're just 17 or 18, that's like I think acceptable because I think everyone does it, because you don't want to like downgrade yourself or like wrote like, oh, I didn't do that much actually, because, you know, you have to be very confident and like kind of a show off, but also not in a very obvious and like striking way. I also said that you shouldn't use any cliches or quotes, because I think every personal statement guide will tell you this, like quotes are like a no-no, and like cliches such as like, oh, I wanted to study mechanical engineering since the age of 5. It's probably like bullshit and they will know it, and it just doesn't add up anything to your personal statement. It's not very convincing. So the last part of the whole personal statement process would be to get feedback, and not only from the project access mentor in case you apply for it, but what you can also do, and that is what I also did, was I was already like signed up to like several like Facebook groups of like IB, because I did IB, it was like mostly IB World or IB Poland, and I used those groups to search for people. Like I just posted like, oh, is there someone who can like read my application through, like read my personal statement through and give me like some feedback. You can just have people who actually like followed like a similar path to you, who got into your university of choice, your dream university. I think I sent my personal statement to like 5-7 people in total, and that was like a really great experience, because if there were like several points that, you know, repeated themselves with different people, it was like a clear message to me of like what should be left out and what I should delete and what I should keep in my personal statement, or like, I don't know, elaborate on. And besides getting like other people's feedback, you will also need to read your personal statement many times, not only like spell checking, but just like read the tone, how it just reads, if the like sentences don't sound too weird or they're not too long or too short. It all should just sound like a cohesive paper, and you will probably be so sick of your personal statement by the time you submit it, but that's how it should be. If you feel like you haven't read it enough times, read it 5 more times just to be sure. So lastly, as promised, I would like to read you my personal statement, and it's specific to economics. So obviously if you're applying for econ specifically, it would be probably useful and informative for you. But I think even if you don't necessarily apply for economics, I think the points I mentioned are like related to any kind of subject. I'm just gonna make a disclaimer because I'm a perfectionist and I'm not proud of this CV right now. I wrote it so long ago, and I can definitely see like an improvement, or like there's so many points I would like change about this, but I'm still gonna read it through because I submitted it at the age when I applied for it, so it like related to my skills and competency at that time. Okay, so let's get to it. Driven by curiosity to comprehend the nature of real-life economic phenomena, I discovered that the inherent ability involved in studying economics is critical thinking. Undermining the credibility of what is considered an impregnable truth, as well as daring to pose a what-if question, has allowed our economy to undergo fundamental changes, from European capitalism to economic globalization, which revolutionized international trade and economics of scale. A book I have read, entitled "Excuse Me, Professor: Challenging the Myths of Progressivism" by Lawrence W. Reed, which discussed progressivism fallacies from an economic perspective, made me realize how crucial it is to constantly reevaluate what we already know about economics. I found it interesting to observe how the focus of many economists shifted from purely theoretical, assumption-based models to once accounting for the intricacies of human psychology. Eager to broaden my understanding of the field of behavioral economics, I have reached for Richard Thaler's Misbehaving: The Making of Behavioral Economics. What fascinates me in particular is Thaler's concluding thought on the nature of economics in the future, in which he states that when contemporary economists begin to take insights of psychology into account, branches of behavioral and traditional economics will merge into a uniform social science. Following that reflection, I concluded that the age of big data opened a whole new range of possibilities in which a behavioral approach to economic decision-making processes should be considered as relevant as logical mathematical analysis. The broad application of mathematics in economics is a significant factor contributing to my decision about selecting the course. Due to my analytical skills and self-discipline, I sought to expand my mathematical abilities through participating in mathematical Olympiads. My success on the regional level led me to receiving a scholarship from Białystok president twice. Although integrating the psychological and mathematical aspects of economics may seem unintuitive, today's economic tools allow for a statistical interpretation of the data concerning various stakeholders' market choices. Consequently, one might model decision-making processes in accordance with psychologically motivated choices and include economically irrational behavior, leading to more accurate predictions of consumer-firm interactions. In September 2018, I became the USG for Finance and External Affairs at BIA-Moon 2019, an annual Model United Nations conference attended by nearly 100 students from all over the world. My responsibilities included seeking sponsors, planning out expenses, and managing the funds. Despite numerous obstacles, the experience taught me a lot in terms of administrating finances, but also working in a team and managing my time effectively. Moreover, I have attended several other MUNs as a delegate. These have extensively improved my research and public speaking skills and introduced me to standard UN procedures. Another interest of mine is debating in my city's debating society. Taking part in tournaments made me Taking part in tournaments requires me to think outside the box and construct logical arguments under time pressure. To enhance my performances, I started following the news from sources such as BBC's Global News Podcast, as well as reading economics-related articles from newspapers such as The Economist. As a result, I discovered how studying demand pull inflation allowed me to comprehend the roots of the Venezuelan crisis, and how learning about tariffs and quotas led to my enhanced understanding of the US-China trade war. I wholeheartedly believe that earning my economics degree through hard work and long-term commitment will serve as a starting point for my prospective career within the field. So that is everything for my personal statement and this video as well. And yeah, that is everything for this video. Thank you much for watching. I hope it was helpful, at least to some of you. And I'll see you in another one. Bye bye.